So I'm going to give you a quick warning now that this video here is, if you're going to listen to this, I would advise earphones because the subject matter is not an easy one. So I'm going to give you that warning now, okay? Just going to make sure, because we've got a video to watch, make sure everything's working. Okay, so in this segment, again, final warning, we're going to be talking about a lot of institutional rot within the police or police services in this country, specifically the Met Police. Okay, because what we're going to read into these stories is going to be horrific and it's going to be gross and it's going to be a system which will not reform itself, and the government has no actual reason to reform it. So if we look at this story, and we've got quite a few to go through, so we'll take our time and get through these in good, as quickly as possible. But yeah, so the Metropolitan Police is investigating allegations that a serving officer raped two of his female colleagues. The officer was not charged and has not been suspended, but faces a misconduct hearing more than 3 years after the allegations were reported. So this dude, this alleged person here, who's allegedly done these crimes, okay, it has taken the Met Police 3 years to hold a misconduct hearing, which is the lowest bar for the police to do anything. He has not been charged. They said there was a lack of evidence, which we'll be talking about in a few minutes. But this is just, honestly, it shows you that the police, when they use the phrase "a few bad apples," one, they use that phrase wrong, because I thought the saying goes "a few bad apples spoils the bunch," but also the fact that if the police cannot be trusted to hold out investigations against their fellow officers, then none of these issues will ever be resolved, because the police will keep getting away with things because they have the institution itself won't stop these people from committing crimes and hurting people. And if they won't police each other, then what that means is that they will always get away with this stuff, and there will always be scummy police officers, because the institution isn't designed to root out, scumbags within the police force. Anyways, we'll go on. So these women were awarded compensation, but one of them says we were just cast aside and not cared for. So obviously, if they were given compensation, it means the powers that be acknowledge something happened. The Met Police says it takes all allegations of domestic abuse extremely seriously, which is an absolute lie, and we'll be talking about that as the video progresses. So the BBC investigation with the Bureau of Investigative Journalism found that the Met Police is also investigating whether details of the women's allegations were leaked to the accused officer. And the fact is, if it's a Met Police officer who's involved in committing a potential crime, the Met Police should not be the ones investigating that person. It should be given to the hands of an independent commission, or it should be given to another police authority to deal with. The fact that the Met Police are going to look into their own, get lost. A BBC, we mentioned that the BBC has changed the women's names to protect their anonymity and is not naming the male suspect. And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if these women's names got out somehow because of the way the police force have acted. So Holly was a junior police officer when she started a relationship with an older, more senior colleague. She says that after a few months, he became controlling and violent. After a night out with friends in 2013, she says he dragged her by the hair, threw her into a dining room table and was going crazy at her. She was saying, "Please stop, you're hurting me." She says he then held her against the arm of a sofa, cracking her ribs. It was an unbelievable amount of pain. Neighbours called the police, but Holly was too afraid to report the assault. On another occasion, she says she was raped. So if this is the case, that she was too scared to report it, the police can go ahead and prosecute someone if it's in the interest of the victim. They went there. It turned out she had broken ribs, okay? I would argue that in this case, it was probably in the police officer's best interest to investigate this person, regardless of what the victim wanted here, because the victim is obviously scared, given that this is a senior officer. It goes on. The male officer had also started a relationship with another colleague, Kate, who says that over 3 years she was also raped and assaulted. This included being beaten up in her car while it was parked on police premises. Did no one see what happened? He started abusing her after 4 months of being together. She says it progressed and progressed. He tried to kill her. He threw her against the chest of drawers in their room. She says he then ran at her and pinned her to the bed and started strangling her. Soon after that, Kate ended the relationship. She was put in touch with Holly, and they basically spoke about their experience. In 2017, they both reported allegations of physical and sexual assault. The male officer denied them, and after an investigation by Essex Police, so my mistake, it wasn't the Met Police investigating this, it was Essex Police, the Crown Prosecution Service decided in 2019 there was not enough evidence to prosecute. But the victims involved say it was a really bad investigation marred by a lack of evidence gathering. And the simple fact is, if you do not look for the evidence there, then you're always going to claim there's not enough evidence to prosecute, because that was what you wanted to do. According to Holly, she claims Essex Police didn't even finish taking all of her allegations and didn't arrest the suspect. Typically they would bring him in for questioning, maybe not arrest him or charge him, but they would bring him in for questioning. They didn't even finish taking all of her allegations. That shows you they had no interest. They had absolutely no interest to help her. Essex Police said it carried out a lengthy investigation, which looks like a myth. There were areas for improvement in the management of these investigations. So you admit you didn't do enough then? Okay, cool. You admit that straight up. There was no immediate safeguarding concern due to the asked why the police officer was not arrested. They said there was no immediate safeguarding concern due to the non-recent nature of the allegations. But you got to think, if this guy's done it to 2 women, he could be doing it to someone else. Surely you should have brought him in. Come on. Holly says she still lives in fear of meeting him at work. So this guy hasn't even been transferred out. Surely you'll transfer him out somewhere else. Because evidently people are not comfortable working around him, and it's not the victim's fault here, it's the police force's fault. She got very little support, so the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority awarded her £17,000, saying police evidence indicates that she was a victim of abuse. Now, the bar is lower than that of criminal, to prove that someone is a criminal, to prove that you were a victim of something. But, it's evident that this organisation clearly believes that she was a victim of these crimes. So surely the police should have done more to deal with this alleged bent copper. Come on, man. The Met Police last month, a year after Siska's findings, said the officer accused of rape will face a misconduct hearing, saying they have not set a date. Honestly, man, this is painful to read here. We take all allegations, this is the Met Police saying, we take allegations seriously, and it is right, the proper and full circumstances of this case should be considered at a hearing. We continue to offer welfare support and assistance to the victims. You've offered minimal, mate. Minimal. The Met confirmed the male officer had been taken off public-facing duties. Asked why he had not been suspended, it said a criminal investigation did not guarantee an officer would be suspended. Surely if someone's under criminal investigation, they should be suspended. But the way the Met handled her experience at a local level was horrendous, Holly said. There was very little support. It was very poorly managed, she said. He massively controlled everything. He had his friends, he was looked after, whereas we were just cast aside and not cared for. It should have been an independent police force that had no connections to this dude. That's what should have happened here. At the early stage, the male officer was leaked the details of the investigation, so they should be looking at who leaked the details of this investigation, and they should be struck off as well. So the male officer was leaked details of the investigation. Internal police documents seen by the BBC showed this allowed him to prepare his defence. So whoever leaked the information should get sacked and should face punishment as well for doing this. Solicitor Crawford, who looks at abuse cases, said the investigation and the steps taken thereafter by the Met have been completely inadequate, woeful, and let these women down. It has taken just so long for the Met to take any action whatsoever against them. It's been about 4 years. She added, and I think what that says to other victims of domestic abuse is that we say we'll protect you, but actually it will take years and maybe nothing is coming. Holly still loves being a police officer, but said she was quite bitter about it. She was saying she wants to change it, but the thing is, it's impossible to change an institution like that unless you get to the top and you actually force down changes and you have the backing of the government and other groups. So, good luck, honestly. Kate says she has no trust in the service she works for, and honestly, I don't either after reading this. We look here, the Met Police let hundreds of officers accused of sex attacks escape sanctions, figures reveal. Figures obtained by The Independent show only 1 in every 18 members of the Met accused of sexual assault are subject to formal action. So the question you've got to ask yourselves are, why are so many Met Police officers accused of this stuff? You've got hundreds of officers from Britain's biggest police force accused of sex attacks never face any kind of disciplinary hearing, the Met can reveal. So surely if you're accused of something, you should be taken to a disciplinary hearing and be asked what the hell is going on. Figures obtained via Freedom of Information requests show that 1 in every 18 members accused of sexual assault is ever subject to a formal investigation. Between the start of 2012 and June 2018, a total of 562 officers were accused of sexual assault and only 43 faced subsequent proceedings, according to the data released under the Freedom of Information Act. And so what you can see here is that many of these people did not face any kind of punishment. Some of them retired, and one officer who retired was forced to undergo a formal investigation that saw him stripped of their pension. But was he punished though? We have more. This is more up to date. This is from the 20th of March. Saying that an extraordinary catalogue of sexual misconduct allegations against Metropolitan Police officers, including claims that they had sex with a rape victim and another assaulted a domestic abuse survivor. Like, they're working with vulnerable people and taking massive advantages of them. There's more in the West Midlands. Meanwhile, an off-duty officer was convicted of assault by beating a woman, beating on Friday after he had pleaded guilty to an attack on a woman walking home alone. So he just attacked her for no reason, and he got a community order. And it says here that he avoided prison, but was instead given a curfew and ordered to pay his victim £500. Like, this system, it fails women and protects men. I would say that it fails victims and protects predators and perpetrators. But for the vast majority of the point, Harriet Harman there is right. It is more designed to protect men because predominantly it is men doing this stuff. A statement from the Met Police said, while the allegations involve a small percentage of staff, we acknowledge the impact any offence will have on those involved, and we will continue to take allegations of this nature extremely serious. This is about domestic abuse, harassment, and all this stuff within the Met. But there's more. You've got this story here of domestic abuse within police force to be investigated. So an official super complaint has been launched into the boys' club culture within police forces that allow officers to abuse their spouses and partners without fear of prosecution. The complaint to be brought by the Centre of Women's Justice. Again, this is in 2019. I don't know what's happened with this, but what we can gather reading from this article is that police officers that are accused of domestic abuse rarely face any punishment for it. Details emerged, so obviously this was at the time last week, of a case in which a female police officer claimed she was forced out of her job after making complaint against her violent boyfriend also serving as a police officer. So instead of actually listening to her, they pushed her out of the police force. So Noga Alpha, the solicitor for the Centre of Women's Justice, who is leading the super complaint, said, we are concerned about a lack of integrity in the system and the potential for improper manipulation when police forces investigate their own officers in such sensitive matters. We have heard from many women how they lack confidence within the current system. You've got more stuff here. It's claiming that the police forces choose to protect their own reputation rather than investigating people. And the thing is, when you cover stuff up, eventually stuff like this comes out, and then your police force looks even worse, not just for their actions of the officers, but the cover up of the by the institution. The data from 3/4 of forces showed that police employees accused of domestic abuse are a third less likely to be convicted than the general public, which is a huge problem. Fewer than a quarter of complaints resulted in disciplinary action. Greater Manchester Police delivered 1 conviction from 79 reports over a 3-year period. And, it could be the case that some of these there's a lack of evidence, but come on, man. Like, if you're 3 times less likely to be convicted as a police officer, there are general problems within the system. One of the women, Sarah, told the Observer that last week details emerged of a case involving Gwent Police, which is accused of protecting a police officer who was controlling and physically abusive to several younger female trainees he dated. One of the women, Sarah, told the Observer that the joke approach to the allegations ensured that the force looked after PC Clark Jocelyn instead of his victims. So what you can see here, the system is very much designed to protect these senior police officers who do stuff like this, and generally it's women who are the victims of this stuff. Sarah started dating Jocelyn After another recruit, Jody, reported him for controlling behaviour and stalking, Gwent police had not acted on her complaint. Unaware of his past, Sarah reported several assaults, including an allegation that he pinned her against the wall while holding a knife, but Jocelyn was never arrested. You've got to think, if you go to the police and you say this has happened, you've got to think there's going to be an arrest over this, but there wasn't. They chose to protect the reputation of the police force. I trusted the police force to protect me, and instead I've lost my trust in them. And these are women serving within the police force who have lost their trust. Sarah and Jody, not their real names, are raising funds for a legal challenge against Gwent police over their protection of domestic violence perpetrator in their ranks. And the thing is, through the legal action, I would not be surprised if more information came out about other victims, and it makes Gwent police look even worse. Following a police misconduct hearing into the officer, a 29-page report listed allegations of violence and control against women for which he was never charged or arrested. They have a 29-page report on this guy and nothing happened. Despite the conclusion on balance that many of the allegations were proven, Jocelyn, who resigned before his misconduct hearing, remained highly thought of in the force. So despite all this stuff happening, this guy was still highly thought of. It's literally a boys' club. I cannot describe in any other way. He made threats saying, if you tell them what I'm like, you'll end up losing your job. He was right in the end. This is absolute madness right here. The system is madness. Many of the cases the centre had gathered said over, including female police officers who had suffered victimization and whose careers had been severely affected, because you think that if you complain about these people, they will stop promotions. OFA said, we will be proposing that such cases should be dealt with with outside the police force concerned, and should be way outside. They should have no connections with any other police force. Women who have come forward include one whose husband was a serving officer and whose force handed him a copy of her statement against him, then mysteriously lost it. So this guy, he had a complaint against him from a woman. They gave this police officer a copy of her statement, and then he got rid of it. And so nothing happened. He told me, I'm a police officer, no one's going to believe you. The woman whose husband remains a serving officer told the Bureau of Investigative Journalists. He's still there. He can still be doing damage to people, to women, and he's still allowed to keep his job. Honestly. In another case, a woman said that the force where her partner worked was completely uninterested in her rape allegations against him. Her partner's force interviewed and bailed him after she alleged that he had raped her, but soon closed its criminal investigation. The case was transferred to a second force for an internal misconduct investigation, where it was discovered that the seals had never been broken on evidence provided by the alleged victim. So they never actually looked into this stuff. The seals on the evidence showed that they were never opened. Another complaint is the subject of a wide-reaching inquiry into an alleged boys' club of sexist officers in northeast Scotland. Male officers allegedly began bullying a female colleague after she reported her ex-partner, an officer in the Moray Command Area for domestic abuse. Like, each of these stories you read is just harrowing. And the thing is, you realise that hardly any of this stuff was investigated, and they had to come out to the press to talk about this stuff because the police force did nothing, and still nothing is happening. Among the allegations also are claims that male officers drove her to a forest at night and left her stranded to teach her a lesson. So not only was her complaint not listened to, but she was also punished because she spoke out, and they left her stranded in a forest where anything could have happened. She could have died. They claim that there's going to be some sort of robust inquiry, but I doubt it. And we've got another one here saying victims of police domestic abusers are powerless. Women domestically abused by police officers feel powerless, as their abusers are too often protected from facing justice, campaigners say. And they offer some reforms. This group here, the Centre of Women's Justice, they say that victims being able to report their claims to the Independent Office of Police Conduct, the IOPC, rather than the police force, that's a good one. Neighbouring police forces investigating claims should be the norm. Officers guilty of abuse also being subject to misconduct procedures. Restrict officers facing allegations from work with victims of domestic abuse or sexual abuse. So, restricting officers is a good idea if they're accused of stuff. Maybe put them on administrative leave. But we've got multiple police forces that are there are complaints against. You have Cambridgeshire, Devon and Cornwall, Greater Manchester Police, Gwent, Hampshire, Hertfordshire, Leicestershire, Merseyside, Met Police, Northumbria, Police Scotland, Surrey, Sussex, and the West Midlands. And I think there's one more. There's one more story I want to talk about, which is that Met Police. This guy here, a member of the Met Police, was a Nazi before he joined the police, and we've got some video footage of him. So some great work here from the journalist. But yeah.
Why did you join a terrorist organisation and then join the police? Why did you join a terrorist organisation and then join the police? Ben, why did you...
People point the irony of him having a white cap, which I find hilarious. But you've got a guy who was a neo-Nazi who managed to get through into the police force. Like what the hell is going on here? He was caught spray painting a building in 2017. He was here sparring and stuff like that. And he should have been identified way quicker. He became a police officer. So not only do you have a neo-Nazi who made it into the Met Police Force, which does raise the question: how stringent are their background tests checks on police officers joining the force? As you have a load of domestic abusers in there as well within the Met Police, but also police forces in general. Like, what is going on? What are the complaint procedures like? And why have the government done very little to actually intervene here? Specifically with the Met Police, the government doesn't want to shake the boat too much, because the Met Police are the ones who will protect politicians, because politicians are mainly based in London, where the Met Police are. But honestly, I'm not surprised to read any of this. Police officers always back each other. It be in America or be it in England, and it's very much not in their best interest to report dodgy police officers, because that will impact their careers and their kind of standing within the police force. So there needs to be a massive culture of change within the police force, and they need to set up more independent complaint services against police officers who are alleged to have committed these sorts of crimes, because it's just not good. The system right now stinks, and these police officers that have been implicated in these crimes could go on to do all manner of sorts of things to victims and other people. Who knows what else they do in their personal lives. Anyways, this has been a long and very painful video. I appreciate anyone who's watching it. Let me know, like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.